Tottenham Hotspur are a club that haven't won a trophy for quite a while now. In fact, the last one they won was the League Cup in 2008. Since then, they've lost 3 League Cup finals, lost the Champions League final, and have even finished as runners-up and 3rd place in the Premier League on 3 occasions in the late 2010s, including the famous one where it looked like they were going to win the title, only for Leicester to eventually grab that title from them. That's led to the phrase Spursy being used a lot and Spurs being the butt of many a joke in football, but today we're going to try and change that. I'm going to try and win the Premier League and the Champions League in 5 years as Tottenham manager. Now, the job to win those trophies has been made a lot harder by the fact that Harry Kane has left the club. Of course, one of the world's best strikers is going to be a loss to any team. But saying that, Spurs do have some pretty good players on their books still. Heung-min Son is club captain and one of the best players in the Premier League. Argentinian Christian Romero is vital at the back for Spurs. And recent signing from Leicester, James Maddison, is the heartbeat of our midfield. And outside of having those good talents, Spurs do have some good young players as well at the club. Destiny Udogie has had a great season under Ange Postecoglou this year, and it's been a breakout year for Pape Sarr as well, who's played a big part in that midfield role. And despite being pretty poor in a 4-0 loss to Newcastle recently, Mickey van der Ven is one of the best young centre-backs around. Now, with the squad that they've got, they're predicted in-game to finish 7th, 25-1 odds of winning the title, so Ange Postecoglou has seemingly done a pretty good job with this Spurs squad. I know some of the recent results have been questionable, but he's definitely got them going in the right direction compared to where a lot of people thought they would be after Harry Kane's exit. Of course though, Ange is no longer here and it's us that's in charge of managing Spurs. We've got some great facilities and a massive stadium to help us on the way, and financially the club is doing fairly well with £300 million in the overall balance, but I only say fairly well because there's a pretty sizable debt. I think a lot of that is to do with the building of their new stadium. And going into our first transfer window, Spurs have done most of their business already, so we're only left with £5 million to spend. In future seasons, I'm sure we'll spend a lot more, but we're going to have to make some outgoings to bring anyone in season 1. So with that being said, let's kick off our transfers. And I've actually done quite a lot of business in this window, but before I show you that, I want to ask you guys to do me a massive favour. If you could, scroll down on the video and smash that like button for me. It really will help the video's performance, and subscribe as well if you haven't already. We're pushing for 35k subs. That's our next target on our road to 50k, so thank you to anybody who does that. We do weekly Football Manager rebuilds, and make sure you comment down below who you want to see rebuilt next. I always go by your suggestions. In fact, I've had Spurs suggested so many times, but as a Chelsea fan, it's something I never wanted to do, but you guys have requested it so much that we're finally going to do it. And the final thing is, if you want to get involved in supporting me as a creator, there's a Patreon linked in the description. Over there, not only can you support me, but in return you'll get access to the save files for every single rebuild that we do from season 1 through to 5, so you can take over at any point and give it a go yourself. With that being said, let's see who we sold. And to be honest, I have been pretty cutthroat in the market, trying to get rid of as many of the players that I don't want to build around going forward. Højbjerg was the first one, a good player, but when we got an offer from Al Nassr out in Saudi Arabia for 30 million, I thought that's pretty good money for a 27-year-old who I didn't really see as part of my plans. I've also loaned out Oliver Skip for the year. The English homegrown talent is a decent player, but not someone that I really see as being able to impact the squad right now. Giovanni Lo Celso was a similar one. I wanted to get rid of him, but I wasn't able to get any kind of final fee, so we've ended up loaning him out to Real Sociedad for £1 million, and there is an optional fee for them to buy him should they want to. And another pretty big sale is Emerson Royal. The Brazilian right back is a player that I don't mind too much, but he just wasn't someone that I was desperate to keep around, and when there was interest from Saudi, he wanted to go. It made sense for me to sell him on. 25.5 million to Al Ittihad. In total, that raised over £50 million for us to spend, which allowed us to bring in a few extra players. Now, I haven't necessarily gone for star names, but I have brought in a lot of squad options that I think will really improve us over the course of a season. One was Amar Dedic, who is a Bosnian left-back option, 20 years of age, coming in from RB Salzburg for 16.5 million. He's going to be a really good option in the inverted wing-back role that you're going to see I'm trying to use in the tactic that I show you in a second. Our replacement for Emerson Royal is Arnau Martinez, a Spanish 20-year-old with a lot of potential, not necessarily going to break into the team straight away, but hopefully will be a good squad player for the first few years. He joins from Girona for about 8.5 million. I've added some extra depth to our midfield, bringing in Brazilian 22-year-old international Andre. He joins from Fluminense in Brazil for 15 million. He's got decent ability right now and a lot of potential too, and really could be a key player in our midfield going forward. And then I thought we could do with an extra forward option too, so in comes Vangelis Pavlidis. Again, not really going for star names, but this is a Greek 24-year-old who's been doing really well in real life for AZ Alkmaar, did get a boost in the winter update, and now is a pretty good player in game. We spent 15 million quid on him. That's not too bad for a player that can cover on the left-hand side and also up front. If you don't know, I only sign players that our scouts recommend in these videos, so I can't use my own knowledge. Our scouts have to find them first. That way, I don't end up signing the same players, but I think those 4 additions are pretty good ones. As mentioned though, I am using inverted wingbacks, and I'm trying to play a very similar system to what Spurs do in real life currently. It's not an exact match by any stretch. I'm no tactical whiz, so I don't really know how to get them playing exactly the same. We've got 2 inverted wingbacks. We've got ball-playing defenders, including Van de Ven, who's going to hopefully cover. We've got a midfield that's going to require some energy and some industry with a box-to-box midfielder and a defensive midfielder. We've got an inside forward, a winger, and an advanced forward. We're playing a very high line and trying to press high up. Usually, I use the preset tactics that the game provides, but I've tried to make this one myself, so fingers crossed it goes well, else I might end up having to change it. But to quickly introduce you to our current best 11, our best goalie is Vicario, who's been a good signing for Spurs. He's done well this season. Pedro Porro is supposedly our best right back. We've got Romero, Van de Ven, and Udogi, who you've already met. Basuma is in the midfield, the former Brighton player, alongside James Maddison, and also Rodrigo Bentancur, who's a very good central midfielder who can play in many a role, formerly of Juventus. Speaking of formerly of Juventus, Kulusevski is out on the right wing, with Richarlison supposedly our best inside forward, and Son is suggested to be our best striker. So that's our current best 11, some good talents on the bench as well. Do I really think this team could challenge for a title straight away? Definitely not in my opinion, but we'll see what we can do in Season 1. And you know what? It has actually been a very good first season. In the league, we've managed to finish in 4th place, 79 points, which is a good distance clear of 5th and 6th. Villa, City, and Liverpool were above us by quite a lot of points, mind you. Villa slightly close to us, but those guys were way out in front. We were never in contention for a title, but did pretty comfortably secure that Champions League spot. Now, as I said earlier, Spurs have not won a trophy for a long while, but this year we went quite far in the Carabao Cup, made it to a semi-final against Arsenal, where we lost away 1-0 at the Emirates, but then they had to come to us in the second leg at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And we got off to a flyer. In the 20th minute, Brennan Johnson went down the right-hand side, found Pedro Porro, the ball came out to Bentancur, and a great strike allowed us to level the tie at 1-1. Not too long afterwards though, as we closed in on the end of the second half, Kulusevski hit this brilliant strike from a free kick to make it 2-1, and then in the second half it was him again finding Bentancur, the ball came across the box and Pavlidis rose highest. That was 3-1, and with only a few minutes left to go, Manor Solomon received the ball on the left-hand side, worked it well, got the ball back into the area, and hit a brilliant shot past Raya. That made it 4-1, and it meant we were going to a Carabao Cup final. And it was a very tight game against Manchester City, but early on in extra time, Mickey van de Ven rose highest to make it 1-0. But with 105 minutes on the clock, De Bruyne went round the left-hand side of the pitch, managed to play the ball across the middle, and Julian Alvarez swept home to make it 1-1. And that meant we were heading for a penalty shootout to try and win the Carabao Cup. And the shootout went to sudden death, where our player Dragusin scored to put the pressure on City. And it was Stefan Ortega, the City goalkeeper, who stepped up. He missed his shot, and that meant that we had won the Carabao Cup in Season 1. Now, I'm not saying I'm the answer to all of Spurs' problems, but straight away, we've won a trophy, we've got Champions League football, and made the semi-finals of the FA Cup too, so this has definitely been a very bright start, and we have some great players to thank for it. Vicario, Van de Ven, and Sarr were our best 3 players, whilst Kulusevski, Maddison, and Son were our best goal scorers. In terms of the new incomings that we made, Pavlidis managed to score 6 goals, Andre was pretty consistent across the course of the season. Meanwhile, Arnau, Martinez, and Dedic didn't play much, but were good squad players when called upon. So that was our first season done. We could only make minimal transfers, but now we go into Season 2, where we can really get started with our own business, getting players out and bringing new players in, and we've got £50 million to try and do so. Now, just to warn you before we go into this transfer window, we have sold over £180 million of talent and we spent over £130 million. Let's run through the sales quickly. Firstly, Japhet Tanganga has gone to Torino for 1.1 million in the last year of his contract. Tanguy Ndombele we are cutting ties with just to get him off the books here at Spurs. He's gone to Hertha Berlin in the Bundesliga for 2.1 mil. Sad to see him go actually, he was a good squad player, but Ben Davies has left to join Al Ettifaq out in Saudi for 8.75 million. Ryan Sessegnon also heads out to the Saudi divisions where he's getting 300k a week at Al Ittihad, who paid a pretty good fee of £11 million for him. I wasn't too mad at that. We also saw the departure of Joe Rodon, who was on loan at Leeds last season. Now he's playing for Al Qadsiya, who spent 11 million quid on him. Jed Spencer's moved on. He's gone to join Everton, who played a pretty hefty 11.5 million, considering, to be honest, he was terrible at Genoa last year. Speaking of Everton, they've also taken another player off our hands. Brian Gill has joined them for £13 million, rising to 17.25. And Sergio Reguilon has left the club to go and join Manchester United, where he spent a bit of time on loan, then got loaned out to Brentford halfway through the season. Now they've given us 17 million quid, and I don't think that's too bad of a deal. But there was one transfer that I definitely did not want to make, but the player wanted the move and the money was too good to turn down. It was Heung-min Son, of course, the star boy of Tottenham. He has gone to Al Ittihad, where he's earning £1 million a week at 32 years of age. The reason I had to sell him, like I say, one, he wanted to leave, but two, we got offered over 100 million, 113 million in fact, for a player who's 32 years of age, which as a club, I don't feel like we could turn down. As good of a player as he wasn't necessarily amazing last year. 15 goals was good, but not unsellable, untouchable territory. So Son is out the door, but that meant a lot of money to reinvest in the squad. So let's start with who we've bought in. Firstly, Fraser Forster has left, so we needed a new backup goalkeeper. So I've gone for 24-year-old Englishman Anthony Patterson, who isn't just here to play when Vicario is injured, but hopefully push him quite a bit. He joins from Sunderland for 22.5 million. Might seem like a lot for a backup goalie, but he's English, he's good quality, and I think he's got resale value too. Amine Ghiori was our next signing, a player that's able to play on the left-hand side and also up front. The Algerian 24-year-old has been playing for Rennes and also Nice and Lyon in the French divisions, where he's been pretty good over the years, but has never quite taken that step up. Now though, he's got the chance in the Premier League to really try and set it alight. Our defence has been bolstered by the signing of Serbian 23-year-old Strahinja Pavlovic, who's a good defender who brings that physical aspect to our team. We've seen this season in real life, if Romero or Van de Ven get injured, Spurs are pretty hard done by in that centre-back role, so Pavlovic is a player that can not only deputise for them, but hopefully push them, joining from Salzburg for 24 million. Another signing was Marcus Edwards, a former Spurs player, has rejoined the club. He played for them years ago and has been doing really well in Portugal, particularly last season. With a 7.62 average match rating, we have now paid £28 million for him, rising to 30. For an English player at 25, I don't think that fee is too bad. But our biggest signing was our new striker, Samu Omoro Dion, who was playing out on loan for Alaves from Atletico Madrid last season. Didn't score too well, but our scouts really recommended him highly, so we have paid that £42.5 million fee that Atletico wanted for him. He's a good striker, a lot of potential, and fits the mould of what I want of a striker in the Premier League. Strong, big, and very quick. He's going to be a nightmare for any defender, and is likely the future of that Spain forward position. And with the transfers that we've made both out and in, this is what is supposedly our best 11 now, with Vicario in goal, still Porro, Udogie, Van de Ven, and Romero at the back, and the same midfield of Sarr, Basuma, and Maddison. Actually, I think Bentancur's been dropped out of there for Sarr, who had a really good season last time out and has developed a lot in that midfield. And then it's Kulusevski, Richarlison, and Ghiori. Now, I'd like to see Samu Omoro Dion playing instead of Richarlison. I'm not really sure I fancy him as our main striker, but that is supposedly what the game considers our best team. And in terms of season preview, we are still predicted a 7th place finish, but 20-1 odds is better than last year when it was 25-1, so either we've got better or the teams above us have got a little bit worse. I don't quite know. We're going to find out in season 2. Let's see what we can do both in the Premier League and the Champions League. And I'll be honest, the first season went really well, the second season has been really tough. In all competitions, we haven't necessarily made any of them our own. We got to the semi-final of the FA Cup, knocked out by Chelsea, semi-final of the Carabao Cup, knocked out by Chelsea too, which is obviously a big thing for any Spurs fan watching. They really would have hated that. The Champions League, we got all the way to the quarters, but it was PSV Eindhoven that knocked us out. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we could have won the Champions League yet, but to be knocked out by PSV is really unfortunate, especially considering the semi-final could have been any one of Copenhagen, Bayern or City, so there was a chance there for us to potentially make a UCL final. And as you've probably seen, the league did not go too well. Points-wise, it wasn't much worse than what we had in previous seasons, but it's only a 6th place finish, which isn't too bad, but the other big 6 clubs have all done better than us. We were quite a while away from 5th or even 4th, so next season we will be playing European football, but it's only going to be Europa League and not the Champions League that we might have wanted. That being said, it was a transition year for our team, being without the likes of Heung-min Son and a lot of the older experienced players, so it maybe isn't the worst, particularly when you see the likes of Richarlison scoring 24, Pavlidis getting 13, Brennan Johnson scoring 15, whilst Vicario and Sarr play very well. Gyuri also had a very good first year at the club, and we even seen Samu Omora Dion getting quite a lot of game time, 40 games across the course of the season. 9 goals from 20 starts isn't amazing, but he is developing and he's going to need time to really bed in to this Premier League squad. So look, was it the best season we ever could have had? No, but we did win a trophy in season 1 with the Carabao Cup, so at least we've got off to a decent start. Now though, we've started making our own team, we need to keep building on it ahead of season 3, where we've got £50 million to spend and 400 grand in the wage budget. Let's see what we can do in the transfer market. Okay, it's been another busy window, lots of players out and in, but before I show you them, for the last time, I'll ask you if you could, if you are enjoying, to like the video, but what I mainly want to tell you about is a Discord that you can find linked in the description of this video with over 900 members now. We started it a long time ago and it's been building and building. It's a great community, all about Football Manager. You can show off your tactics, the players that you've found, or just talk about it, ask questions, whatever you want to do. There's also chats for real life and real life football. Like I say, a great bunch of people over there, so make sure you check that out if it sounds like your cup of tea. But let's take a look at who he sold in the club. The first one is the weirdest transfer of the lot. Marcus Edwards, who he signed last season, has moved on straight away. He wanted to leave because he only played 6 times last year, and I don't blame him. Clearly when we holidayed ahead, the assistant didn't fancy him. I then thought I'd only be willing to sell him for the price we paid for him, and thankfully Saudi side Al Nassr were willing to do that, so we don't really lose any money on him. It was a weird transfer, didn't work out. He's been at Spurs once and left, now he's been here twice and still didn't make the cut. This window has also saw the exit of Pedro Porro, aged 25. He wanted a new mega contract. I wasn't quite willing to give him what he wanted, and then he started kicking up a fuss saying he wanted to leave. Man U came in, 30 million, not too bad considering what Spurs paid for him, and I do think we could improve on him considering his performances over the last few years. Yves Bissouma has also left the club. He was coming to the last year in his deal, if I remember correctly, and he has now moved to Newcastle for 34 million, which is an increase on what Spurs paid for him. And as you can see, he was playing the only 24 starts last year, not necessarily the most key player in our team, and I feel like we could improve on him. And for those wondering about some of the younger players at the club, Alejo Velis is a player that Spurs signed a few years ago. We loaned him out to Aston Villa last year. This year, we're sending him to Racing Club to get some game time, to either sell him for a profit or use him in the first team eventually. The first new gen player we've signed in this rebuild though is going to be Thomas Franco. I tend to avoid new gens, but this guy is so good at age 19, an Argentinian who we've signed for only 6 million quid. I then loaned him back out to the team we got him from to let him develop, but I'm sure in the next couple of seasons he is going to be a regular, but we're going to let him develop away at his home club for a while before we bring him to our team. Luka Vuskovic is a signing that Spurs had already made in real life, but he has now joined us aged 18. He's cost us 11.75 million supposedly. Like I say, wasn't a transfer I did, it was already pre-arranged, but he is a nice centre-back option to develop for the future. A signing we made though was Angelo Stiller, a 24-year-old German midfielder who we spent a pretty hefty 51 million quid on from Stuttgart out in Germany. They bought him in from Hoffenheim and he's been excellent in the Bundesliga, and according to our scouts was the best they could find in that deep-lying role in our midfield. He can also offer us something a little bit further forward, a creative player who's good in the tackle and great with the ball at his feet. I actually think this could work out to be a very good good bit of business. And we'll be hoping this piece of business was a good one too, because we have spent a fortune on Michael Kayode, 65 million quid, rising to 83 on the player from Fiorentina. He's 21, 19 Italian caps already one of the world's best right backs with a lot of potential. He's going to be playing in that inverted fullback role on the support duty. I feel like it's going to suit him down to the ground. And I do also think he's an upgrade on Pedro Porro. So all around, I feel like this should work out for us. And here is what is now considered our best team, with Italian Vicario in goal and two Italians, Doggy and Kayode, at fullback with plenty of potential. Pavlovic and Romero are supposedly our best centre-backs, with a midfield of Andre, who's been developing nicely in that deep lying role now and is one of our key players, alongside James Maddison and also Pape Sarr. Kulusevski, Giori and Richarlison are still supposedly our best attackers, but what I really love to see is our bench is now full of great talents, meaning that we have the depth here now at Spurs to try and compete on multiple fronts. Of course, we're in the Europa League this coming season, but we're also still trying to push for that Premier League title, as far away as it might seem for us right now. In terms of the season preview, they've got us in 7th place, 20-1 odds, so yet again, things aren't really changing, but I feel like this year we could definitely make a push for that top 4 again with the additions that we've made. So fingers crossed all goes well in season 3. And this season, you might remember, we were actually in the Europa League. Now, hands up, I must say, our team was probably one of the favourites for the competition, but we did go all the way to a semi-final where we knocked out Newcastle, which set up a final against Stuttgart, who realistically, we should have been able to beat. So we went into that match determined to come home with a European trophy, and very early on, only 7 minutes on the clock, Van de Ven found Pavlidis. That made it 1-0, but in the 63rd minute, Holzek rose highest in the box to head past Vicario, and all of a sudden it was a draw and we were going to extra time. But in the 97th minute, Kayode found Johnson, who played it to a Doggy in the box. Our Italian scored, he managed to make it 2-1, and we went on to win a Europa League final. On top of that, our league performance was also pretty good. We got 76 points, which again is a similar points total to recent years, but it has meant a 4th place finish. Only 6 losses, was one of the best in the league, and we were joint on points with City, 3 points away from Arsenal, and not too far off eventual winners Aston Villa of all teams. No idea how they've done that, but it does show that these teams like City and Liverpool are starting to slow down in their dominance, and there might now be a void there at the top of the league for us to try and push into. In terms of cup competitions, the Carabao, we didn't quite make it as far as we would have liked, but the FA Cup, we made a semi-final where again we faced off against Newcastle and beat them, leading to a final against Nottingham Forest. Now, in our 3 years in this save, Forest have built a pretty strong squad, and Niakate rose highest in the 9th minute. That made it 1-0. In the 26th minute though, we managed to come up the other end through Rodrigo Bentancur with this brilliant strike from range. Should the keeper have saved it? Maybe, but that was 1-1 and we went all the way to extra time. And we seemed to thrive in extra time because it was in the 101st minute where Skip found Kulusevski, the ball came to Sarr, he smashed it into the back of the net. That was 2-1, and again we won the trophy. That's a Carabao Cup, an FA Cup and a Europa League in our 3 seasons at Spurs. Now, the reason we were so good in all competitions was that we had loads of players scoring and playing well across many different fronts. I mean, Pape Sarr got 16 goals, Richarlison with 24, Kulusevski 14, Maddison 21, Bentancur got 12, Brennan Johnson got 11, Giori got 12. There was 19 goals for Pavlidis as well. Goals all over the pitch, goals galore. We were letting quite a few in, but scoring loads, and that really helped us this year. In the meantime, we have been upgrading some of the facilities at the club to be even better than they already were, and we've got some good young players developing in the team too. Lots of great players coming out the academy. One brilliant young player at Spurs that a lot of you might know about is Mikey Moore, who's now 18 and looking like a pretty good player, so we're going to try and loan him out next season, and maybe in season 5 he can play a part in the first team, but he's not quite there yet. But with that being said, we go now into our penultimate season, season 4, with 54 million quid to spend and 300 grand a wage budget. There's still a lot of room to improve this team, so let's see what we can do in the season 4 transfer window. Firstly, leaving the club is going to be Dragusin, now 24. The Romanian is a good centre-back, but wanted a bit more game time than what he was getting, particularly after last season. So he's now moved to Damak in Saudi Arabia for just under 10 million. We've got Romero, we've got Van de Ven, and we've got Pavlovic. And our 4th centre-back is no longer going to be Dragusin. I'm going to be using the youngster Vuskovic to now be our 4th choice defender. This window has also sought the departure of Richarlison, joining current Premier League champions Aston Aston Villa, they use their title win and their pulling power to steal him from us. He was willing to go. We weren't too interested in holding on for him when they bid 45 million. Yes, he is a good player, but at 29 years of age, 45 million isn't bad for the kind of attributes that he's got. We've also saw Alejo Velis leave the club. On his loans, he hasn't necessarily stood out too much. At 22, I didn't think he had much potential now to improve and impact the team, so he's not part of our plans. But a big sale is Vicario, who's gone to join Manchester United to be their goalkeeper. 29 years of age, now an Italian capped international. He is left for 32 million. Not bad on what Spurs initially paid for him, especially considering last season was definitely his worst year. But don't fear, Spurs fans, because with that money, I have bought in one of the world's best keepers, 26-year-old Diogo Costa from FC Porto, for a very similar fee. He was transfer listed and he has been unreal in the Portuguese league, so we thought we've got to get him. It made sense with Vicario going too, and now we have one of the world's best goalkeepers in the prime of his career between the sticks. And we didn't go too crazy in the market. We only bought in one extra player, and that was Hassan Udrego. Comes in as one of our best midfielders, still with potential to grow. Look at his attributes and then realise he is only 20 years of age. This guy is phenomenal. He's signed from Schalke for 63 million, where he's been excellent, especially last season in the Bundesliga. Our scouts raved about him, so he's now in as a key part of our midfield. And this side is now really coming along with Costa in goal, Caio, that right back who had a decent first year in the Premier League, Romero, Pavlovic and Udogi is a very strong back line, with Bentancur just in front alongside Sarr and Udrego, Kulusevski, Giori and Pavlidis being maybe one of the most underrated signings I've ever made in a rebuild, signing for 16 million, and he's been bagging goals every year, particularly in some of the other competitions outside of the Prem, and is now considered our best striker with Richarlison leaving. That being said though, Thomas Franco is now back at the club, and I think he'll make that striker position his own before too long. He looks like an absolute gem of a forward. He's absolutely massive, he's quick, he's good in the air, he's strong, he's a good finisher, good dribbler, can pass well, great technique. This guy is the real deal. He's even a leader, so I feel like this is going to be a Harry Kane reborn really for Spurs. My only worry is Samu Amoro Dion, who is now supposedly, according to the assistant, behind both Franco and Pavlidis, so I'm not sure how much game time he'll get. He has scored 3 goals in 2 Spain caps. He's still valued at 80 million, so our transfer for 42 doesn't seem terrible, but he's just not playing, he's not scoring, so I'll be hoping for a better year for him this year. And season preview wise, we are predicted 5th place, 14-1 odds. It's definitely got better for us. I think the incoming of Costa has really helped us. Our reputation as a club has also increased, meaning we can attract some of the world's best players now, so we go into season 4, our penultimate season, hoping for a title push to try and win that Premier League. Okay, so the league season in season 4 was a much better year for us. 81 points, our best total yet, but we were still a massive 14 points away from Man City at the top of the league. They really bounced back, as did Liverpool. 86 points and 95 points for those two. I mean, Aston Villa, who won it last year, finished 10th with 51 points. No idea what happened to them in that last season, but it's been a better year for us. We're separating ourselves from the rest of the pack, but still really struggling against the big two in terms of league performance. But one thing to note is we did win the UEFA Super Cup, beating Real Madrid 2-2 in a penalty shootout. And you might remember we were actually in the Champions League this season, and we actually put up a pretty good performance. Having beat both Inter and Dortmund in the knockout rounds, we faced off against City in a semi-final, went 1-0 up in the first leg, and Odrego put us 2-0 up at the Etihad in 30 minutes. And with 90 minutes on the clock, we managed to seal the deal. Kulusevski receiving the ball in the area, managing to curl it past Ederson, and even though Haaland did score after that to make it 3-1, we had won a Champions League semi-final and we were going to face off against Real Madrid. And it was a tense game with loads of yellow cards and chances on either side. We weren't wearing our typical white kit on the night, but we managed to play the ball through to Odrego. He banged it home in the 67th minute, and nothing happened after that, and that meant we had won a Champions League final. And if that wasn't enough, we also won the Carabao Cup final this year, beating Man City 2-1. won. So it was just an excellent season all around. A Super Cup, a Carabao Cup, a Champions League, and we've got some top performances to thank for it. Samu Amora-Dion might not have played much this year, but he was our best performer when he did, with 8 goals and 8 starts. Kulusevski, Sarr and Ludrago were excellent in the midfield areas. Udogie having a great year yet, probably his best yet. Van der Ven, Maddison, Pavlidis with 21 goals. We have got guys scoring all across the pitch. I didn't mention last year, we did manage to get a loan for Mikey Moore. He's been out on loan at Tottenham and doing pretty well there. For those interested as well, Vuskovic is now 20 years of age and is a good deputy option at centre-back. And also, in case any Spurs fans watching want to know about Lucas Bergvall, who they signed recently in a transfer window, it's not quite worked out from here yet. A good player, but maybe isn't good enough to be in our first team. But overall, this has been a fantastic season, even if the league performance is still quite a way off challenging for a title. So we've got some money to spend going into our final season. In fact, the total is 68 million. And for those wondering, if we go to the finances, there's 242 million in the balance, and the debts have been knocked down a little bit, but there's still a lot there to pay off. So we're probably going to have to spend a little bit less in future seasons, but I want to win this Premier League, so I'm going to push on in season 5. Let's see who we can bring in to really help the squad get that title. Okay, let's go through these sales and incomings. Firstly, Oliver Skipp is out the door, never made an impact for us in this save. He's been loaned out a few times to West Ham, Everton. Now he's made a permanent move to Wolves for 13.75 million. Brennan Johnson has also moved on, going to join Borussia Dortmund in Germany, aged 26, for 24 million. Played less and less over the years, but I think he really will suit the German side, so good luck to him. He's been a good servant, but it was time to move on. And the same goes for James Maddison, who wanted to join Al Nassr when they came in for him, and how do you blame him when they're offering him nearly £800,000 a week. Age 30, he has moved away. He's been good for us over the years, maybe not as good as he's been for Spurs in real life this year, but 44 million is not a bad fee for a 30-year-old Englishman, so that was a lot of money brought in, which meant we could sign some new players. Our first incoming is another new gen, another Argentinian, 19-year-old international already, Andres Benitez, who is a centre-back with a big future, but right now isn't part of a team, so he's been loaned back out to Independiente, valued at 70 million. If anyone decides to continue to save on Patreon, you're going to have a very good centre-back on your hands. Our biggest signing of the window was Lewis Ferguson, a 27-year-old Scotsman joining from Bologna, where he's been excellent for 4 years, and he's signed now for 60 million quid. It's a lot of money, but he has been so good. He's a brilliant box-to-box player, and I think he's an upgrade on what Maddison offered, at least in the balance of our midfield. And we've also seen some extra depth on the wings with the incoming of Mohamed Diamonde. He was playing for Rangers in this save, having signed from Nordsjælland, and has been, to be honest, absolutely phenomenal out in Scotland. Obviously, we want to see that translate to the Premier League, but we spent 30 million on him. The Ivorian is a big player, 25, going towards his prime, could be a very good option on the wing. And that leaves us with this as our final best 11. Costa, Kayode, Udogie, Pavlovic and Romero in a very strong back line. Sarr, Ferguson and Ludrago is a fantastic midfield with Kulusevski, Giori and Pavlidis, who you will see I have loaned out this season. He doesn't have long left on his deal. I wanted to get rid of him. No one seemed to want to buy him though, so we've loaned him out to Feyenoord for the year. I'm not too worried. As much as he has scored goals for us, we have got Franco now, I think, is our actual best striker, with Samu Amora-Dion probably going to sweep up the minutes that Pavlidis would have got. So I think it's an upgrade all around. This, by the way, is how good Thomas Franco is already. We're also seeing Mikey Moore play a role in the team this season. Whether he'll play much, I don't know, but he is going to be in the first team. So fingers crossed, we're going to have a good year. The game seems to think we've got a chance, 13-2 odds of winning the title, predicted 4th. So it's not looking like we're favourites, but we've definitely got a chance of being in the conversation of winning that Premier League. It's going to be tough, but it's what we're here to do. So let's see if we can deliver the Premier League trophy to Tottenham Hotspur. Okay, before we get to the Premier League, let's run through the cups. The Super Cup, we managed to win 3-1, so nice to add that to our cabinet again. A 4th round exit to Norwich in the FA Cup was certainly not a highlight, nor was our 4th round exit to Brighton in the Carabao, but they did eventually win the competition, so maybe it wasn't the worst loss ever. And in the Champions League, we managed to knock out Brennan Johnson's Borussia Dortmund to make a quarter-final, where Man City proved just too much for us across the course of 2 legs. It was 6-4, and Man City were definitely our rivals for the Premier League season. In fact, it was neck and neck with us and City, pretty much on the same points, but with 2 games to go, we managed to get a win over Everton with this strange own goal. At the same time, Man City drew to West Ham, which was a big result for us, and it meant we were in the driving seat. With 1 game left in the season, all we had to do was beat Crystal Palace away, and the Premier League title was ours. Now, Spurs are notorious for being the team that fall at the final hurdle, but we got 1-0 up after 4 minutes through Giori to make it 1-0. Palace, however, with 39 minutes on the clock, scored a penalty. That was 1-1, and just to let you know, Man City beat Leicester in the final game of the season, meaning we had to win this to win the Premier League. And with 78 minutes on the clock, we found Sarr in the middle of the pitch. He laid it off to Michael Coyote, a good ball from him through to Giori, managed to go into the box to Franco, he scored, and it was 2-1, and the Premier League trophy was ours. At least that's what we thought, because in the 93rd minute, Palace played in a corner, they scored with only 30 seconds left of the game, and that meant we did fall again at the final hurdle. In typical Tottenham Hotspur fashion, we lost a Premier League title on the last day of the season, which has never happened in a rebuild before. If you think I'm joking, you can see it here. We even had the same goal difference. If we had won that game, we would have had 2 extra points on Man City. It was so unfortunate, but also kind of so typical of Tottenham. I feel like we've done really well in this rebuild with all the trophies we've won, including the Champions League. So hopefully Spurs fans can forgive us for not winning the Prem, but it is really gutting that we didn't manage to get over the line there. Either way, we're now a 5-star reputation club with amazing facilities, an amazing squad, and some great young players. We didn't win the Prem, but it's definitely been a good rebuild here at Spurs, even if it finished in the most Spursy fashion possible that it could have done. Hopefully some of you guys will continue this over on Patreon and finally win that trophy for Tottenham. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.